In what could be a creeping shift, France and Britain have demonstrated their commitment to prevent one country, namely China, from dominating vital sea lanes traversed by trade trips worth more than $5 trillion each year. As permanent members of the United Nations Security Council (UNSC) and nuclear status quo, the two European countries added significant geopolitical burdens to ongoing efforts to limit China's maritime firmness in the region. European countries are expected to conduct routine patrols in the region to uphold freedom of navigation and flight. France and Britain also have significant trade interests in the area, thanks to the rapidly developing trade relations with the former colonies in Asia. France also still has a number of Pacific countries that accommodate a large number of its citizens. As the United States (US) struggles to examine the ambitions of China's Navy, other major allies increasingly step up. Over the past 4 years, the U.S. Navy has carried out what is called Freedom of Navigation Operations (FONOPS) to challenge territorial claims and expand the Chinese military footprint in the area. However, patrol and naval operations do not appear to be strong enough to deter China's rapid militarization of the features it controls. Indeed, Beijing has pointed to American FONOPS as a provocation that justifies its recent move to fortify its position in the maritime region. In 2015, Chinese President Xi Jinping reportedly promised his American counterpart, then-President Barack Obama, that China would not militarize disputed land features in the South China Sea. The promise, however, has been seriously broken, where China recently deployed nuclear-powered bombers, surface-to-air missiles, anti-ship ballistic missiles and electronic disruptive equipment to the islands it claimed. Beijing has repeatedly described its militarization and reclamation activities in the region as a defensive act against American aggression. The recently agreed to Shangri-La Dialogue, a center for security talks held in Singapore. Lieutenant General He Lei, Vice President of the Chinese People's Liberation Army Military Academy, said, "All islands are part of Chinese territory and we have historical records. Recognized by international law, these weapons have been deployed for national defense." The U.S. has repeatedly criticized China's actions, but has not yet uncovered a new and more effective FONOP+ strategy. When asked whether Washington would go to rescue smaller claiming countries such as the Philippines, a treaty ally, American Defense Secretary James Mattis expressed reservations. "Stand in support of our allied agreement, but this is a discussion between the current administration in Manila and in Washington. This is not a problem that can be answered as simply as your question shows," Mattis told the audience after his highly anticipated address at the Security Summit. With America failing to provide categorical support to its treaty allies, many have wondered whether smaller claimant countries, namely Malaysia, Taiwan, Brunei and Vietnam, have enough incentives and even the ability to fight the tireless militarization of China in the area. Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte recently announced 3 red lines in the area if China or other countries involved would be the cause of the battle. However, its defense chief, Delfin Lorenzana, regretted the lack of naval capability to prevent China from establishing an exclusion zone in the area. "At present, we do not have the ability even to show others that we are capable. We are not able. We do not have a capital ship. We don't have weapons," Lorenzana said last month when he asked the Philippine Congress to allocate funds for maritime security. "If they prevent our people from resending our forces there at Spratly, then what can we do?" European countries Britain and France will help provide stronger deterrence is not yet clear. In his speech at the summit, French Armed Forces Minister Florence Parly aimed to draw a line around France's commitment to the security of the South China Sea. France is not part of territorial disputes in the area, and it will not, but we insist on 2 principles of rule-based international rules: disputes must be resolved by legal means and negotiations, not by conditions that must be accepted fait accompli, and freedom of navigation must upheld, said the French Chief of Defense. Negotiations are the right way. In the meantime, we must be clear that fait accompli is not accepted, he added, referring to China's latest steps in the area. The French Minister of Defense also stressed that although his country welcomed the code of ethics in the disputed territories, each final agreement must be legally binding, comprehensive, effective and consistent with international law. And the Association of Southeast Asian Nations have disagreed, grappling with the development of a mutually agreed code, which can be legally implemented for the South China Sea for nearly 2 decades. Parley also said that France is not part of a territorial dispute in the South China Sea, and France is not at all at war with China, but that it will increase its own FONOPS in the contested territory. Europe has begun to mobilize more broadly to support this effort. I believe we must expand this effort further. In his address, British Defence Minister Gavin Williamson issued an indirect insult to China, citing increasingly aggressive countries that violated regional access, freedom and security through coercion, as a threat to the rule-based order in the Indo-Pacific. We believe countries must follow agreed rules, but this is ignored by some, and what it does is destroying the peace and prosperity of all nations, Williamson said at the Shangri-La summit. We have to explain that countries need to play by the rules and there are consequences for that. To France, Britain has also conducted FONOP in the South China Sea. The British recently deployed 2 large warships, HMS Albion and HMS Sutherland, to challenge China's extensive claims in the area. Over the years, European-American allies began to bear an increasing burden to prevent China's domination of these international waters. But with their entry, the maritime dispute has become a more complicated mix of the super nations that are jostling and fighting.